Of the roughly 150 species of bovid, it is common knowledge that by far the best animal is the goat. It stands to reason then that their closest relatives are just about as impressive as their caprine cousins. In previous videos, we explored the members of the Capra and Ovis genera, along with 2 other species, leaving, depending on classification, between 16 to 20 species left to explore in this subfamily, starting with one of North America's most iconic species. The mountain goat is one of many mammal species that undergo a seasonal molt, a strategy used by other bovids such as bison and the muskox, a species we'll explore at the end of this video. According to the authors of the first study that we'll explore, the rate and timing of the molt is known to be influenced by a wide range of factors, including day length, temperature, and the animal's body condition, which depends on resource availability and reproductive output. The mountain goat has a thick, 2-layered winter coat, which can grow over 10 centimeters long. It molts once per year and is distributed along latitudinal and elevational gradients that vary in ambient conditions, such as temperature and day length, making it an excellent candidate to examine the value of community science as an approach for investigating molt phenology, the study of cyclic and seasonal natural phenomena. This study is titled Using Community Photography to Investigate Phenology, a case study of coat molt in the mountain goat with missing data. A dataset of photos was sourced from various members of the public and whittled down to 562 photographs from 14 years, spanning a 30-year period, from 1988 to 2018. Each photo had a known date and location, the animal clearly visible and ideally from the side, and a high enough image resolution to use pixel counts to estimate shed extents. The researchers also used fieldwork of their own that concentrated on captive known individuals and adjacent wild populations in Canada's Yukon. They developed a statistical model of coat shedding that infers the most likely state of an animal when sex and parenting status are unknown, without which a large proportion of the community-sourced photographs could not have been used. The results of the study suggest that mountain goats predominantly shed over a 3-month period between the 29th of May and the 6th of September, and that the study found evidence that male mountain goats on average molt earlier than females, and females with kids tend to delay their molt. This was not only consistent in general between the community photos and their own fieldwork, but also matched other studies that observed that females finished molting only after weaning their offspring. Shedding date was positively associated with elevation in that shedding was delayed, and shedding rate was faster at higher latitudes. In terms of consistency, the researchers state that the community photography analysis suggests that these molt patterns are consistent across mountain goats' natural and introduced range, and have been relatively consistent for the last 30 years, and, in conclusion, that in a broad sense there is power in combining community-sourced data and appropriate analytical techniques to understand the ecological trends across broad areas and environments. The mountain goat is found at elevations up to 4,000 meters, and although its range is quite large, it is extant in just 2 countries. Its distribution stretches from Alaska in the far north and runs down the entire length of the Rocky Mountains, as far south as Utah and Colorado. Its mature population size is estimated to sit somewhere between 48 to 62,000, and is thankfully classified as least concern, with a stable population. The IUCN does mention a 2010 study which provides interesting information about the total population. Between roughly 44,000 to 70,000 individuals were thought to exist in Canada, the vast majority of which were found in British Columbia. Between 37,000 to 47,000 were thought to exist in the United States, between 24,000 to 34,000 in Alaska, and the remaining 13,000 in the contiguous United States. The mountain goat is one of only 2 species covered in this video found in North America, the second of which we'll cover at the end. So we must travel across the Atlantic to continue our journey, to visit the only 2 species found natively on the European continent. Both the IUCN and Mammal Diversity Database agree on 2 species of chamois, both of which are found in the same genus, the northern chamois and the southern chamois. Both of these animals are thankfully listed as least concern. However, their ranges and population sizes differ considerably. The southern chamois has the smallest population of the 2, at roughly 50,000 mature individuals. Often referred to as the Pyrenean chamois, a name it takes from its most abundant subspecies, it is also found in far fewer countries, being listed as extant and resident in France, Spain, Andorra and Italy. The northern chamois, on the other hand, is resident in a whopping 21 countries and is also referred to in general by the name of its most abundant subspecies, the alpine chamois. Its distribution stretches from the Alps in the west, across Europe, including the Carpathian and Balkan mountain ranges, all the way to the Caucasus Mountains in the east, in addition to being introduced to New Zealand. One of Europe's most iconic mammals, the population size of the alpine or northern chamois is 6 times that of its southern cousin, with a healthy, mature population estimated to be around 300,000 individuals. The chamois is described by the authors of our next study as the most abundant mountain ungulate of Europe and the Near East, a piece of research that sought to provide a state-of-the-art overview of research trends and the most challenging issues in chamois research and conservation, titled Past, Present and Future of Chamois Science. The researchers state that among the mountain ungulates of this subfamily, the chamois possibly shows the highest behavioral plasticity, which allowed the genus to occupy a vast area, making it one of the most iconic mammals inhabiting the mountainous regions of Europe and the Near East, as well as an intriguing species for ecological investigations. This figure depicts the number of peer-reviewed publications on chamois between 1980 and 2020, showing a 273% increase after the year 2000, and a stabilization since 2010, for a total of 756 publications, accounting for 16% of all publications in the study period for members of this subfamily, a ratio that has been trending upwards since 1980. About 80% of all chamois publications between 1980 and 2020 mentioned the northern chamois, while the southern chamois was mentioned in only 28%, broadly reflecting relative abundance, although importantly, there was a lack of research mentioning subspecies, especially regarding the northern chamois. Topic analysis revealed that veterinary sciences, specifically physiology and disease, have clearly dominated chamois research in the last 4 decades, involving about 1/3 of all publications, and genetics, behavior, and life history also account for a large proportion of the literature on chamois. Each of these topics is then covered in detail and is well worth a read. However, in conclusion for this video, the researchers state that the majority of chamois publications are focused on populations inhabiting the Alps, and to a lesser extent the Pyrenees and the Apennines. Overall, substantial field efforts to collect data on populations from different subspecies and geographic areas are needed to clarify several aspects of the evolutionary biology and ecology of the chamois. So, to the budding zoologists and chamois fans out there, I say simply, your move. As we discovered earlier on, the range of the chamois stretches all the way to the Caucasus Mountains on the intersection of Europe and Asia, a continent that contains no less than 14 species, starting with 3 species of tahr. In similar fashion to the chamois, both databases agree on 3 species of tahr, all of which are found in their own monotypic genera. The Arabian tahr is extant in just 2 countries, being found only on the far eastern tip of the Arabian Peninsula, between the countries of Oman and the United Arab Emirates. They are currently listed as endangered, with somewhere between 2,200 to 2,300 mature individuals remaining in the wild. The Nilgiri tahr is even more endangered, with a mature population of between 1,800 to 2,000 individuals, found only in a single country, India, being limited to approximately 5% of the Western Ghats according to the IUCN. Finally, the Himalayan tahr is found at elevations between 1,500 to 5,200 meters along the world's most famous mountain range, the Himalayas. They are listed as extant and resident in 3 countries, China, India and Nepal, and their presence is uncertain in Bhutan. Interestingly, the IUCN also lists them as extant and introduced in New Zealand, South Africa and the United States, and possibly extinct and introduced in Argentina. Himalayan tahrs play a crucial role in mountain ecology, as the species forms the major prey base of the top predators of mountain ecosystems, according to the authors of our next study, titled Population and Distribution of Himalayan Tahr in Lamtang National Park of the Nepal Himalaya, which sought to assess the population status and distribution of Himalayan tahrs along the Lamtang River of Lamtang National Park, and to examine the effects of habitat characteristics on their abundance. The tahrs were observed using the line transect sampling method, and in addition to location being calculated, records of group size, sex, age, and other features were noted along with date and time. Male, female, and juvenile were categorized on the basis of bigger body with manes, bigger body without manes, and smaller body respectively. A total of 154 individuals from 9 herds of Himalayan tahrs were recorded, giving an average herd size of 17.1, down from an average of 27 found in a previous study. In terms of habitat type, Himalayan tahr herds were mostly observed from rocky cliff habitats, followed by grassland, shrubland, and rhododendron forest. Out of 9 herds observed, 7 or 78% were mixed herds, and 2 or 22% were male-only herds. The majority of individual Himalayan tahrs were observed from the very steep slopes, and the distribution range of the entire population was between 3,100 to 4,200 meters, where the highest number of individuals was observed between 32 to 3,400 meters. It is worth noting that in the methodology it does state that the elevation of the survey areas ranged from 3,000 to 4,200 meters, so tahrs occupied almost this entire altitudinal range. Finally, the observation of 52% of Himalayan tahrs was on the south-facing slope, followed by southeast and southwest-facing slopes. In conclusion, Himalayan tahrs showed a remarkable decline when compared to the previous studies in 1976 and 2006. Therefore, conservation and management initiatives of the Himalayan tahrs are urgently needed in Lamtang National Park of the Nepal Himalayas. The presence of the Himalayan tahr is uncertain in Bhutan, where we bump into our next species, one of the most visually unique animals on this list. The Takin is the first animal we'll examine which the 2 databases we've been exploring disagree on taxonomically. The IUCN lists a single species, simply the Takin, whereas the Mammal Diversity Database makes the distinction between the Himalayan Takin and the Chinese Takin. For the purpose of this video, we'll discuss the Takin as one species, but we will dive into 4 of its listed subspecies, which are fascinating. The Takin is listed as extant in 4 countries, with a large portion of its range found in China in the east, stretching across Myanmar, India and Bhutan to the west. Although no mature population size is listed, there are details about each of the 4 subspecies. The golden Takin is found only in China, and previous population estimates ranged from 5,000 to 21,000 back in the 1990s. The Sichuan or Tibetan Takin is also found only in China and is believed to number several thousand. The Mishmi takin is found between India, Myanmar and China and is also thought to number several thousand. And finally, the Bhutan takin, which does not have a known population estimate. The takin is described by the authors of our next study as a large, sexually dimorphic ungulate that inhabits steep, complex forested alpine and subalpine areas, making it a species for which it is difficult to explore activity patterns, and as such little on the subject was published. The researchers in this study used GPS collars to study the activity patterns of takins in a temperate mountain region, and predicted that takins would, number 1, show crepuscular locomotor activity peaks, and 2, that seasonal and sexual differences in locomotor activity would be found in accordance with seasonal variations in the photoperiod, i.e. the length of day, and the thermoperiod, the daily cyclical fluctuation of temperature. 4 adult males and 6 adult females were tagged with GPS collars, which were programmed to acquire the position every 2 hours. The data information of each GPS position included latitude, longitude, temperature, date and time, in addition to an accuracy metric known as dilution of precision or DOP. Between 3,000 to 4,200 validated GPS locations were collected for each animal between July 2014 and June 2015. The results of the study showed that movement peaks at dusk were especially obvious, after which movement peaks rapidly declined before rapidly increasing again at dawn and then declining during the day. Seasonal differences were also shown in the movement rate of takins throughout the day, with the lowest movement rate throughout the day and during the daytime being in winter. In terms of sex, the results indicated that female diurnal movement rate was significantly higher than that of males in spring, whereas male nocturnal movement rate was significantly higher. The discussion mentions that spring is an important season for female takins to feed calves, and that spring is the migrating season for takins to descend into warmer, lower altitude regions with new green vegetation. In summer, male movement rate was significantly higher than that of females, noting in the discussion that in summer temperatures are at their highest and takins move upwards to forage in the higher altitude regions. Finally, they state that female takins would be pregnant and give birth in winter, therefore females would be less mobile than males in the winter. In addition to the takin, China is also home to the Tibetan antelope, one of the most difficult species to find media for. However, this doesn't appear to be linked directly to how rare this species is, with an increasing mature population size of between 100 to 150,000 individuals as of 2016. The range of the Tibetan antelope sits entirely within the Tibetan Plateau, and as such is found exclusively in grassland habitats. Most of the photos I was able to find are of males, characterized by their long horns and distinctive dark markings around the face and the legs. This species is also referred to as the chiru, and according to the International Fund for Animal Welfare, lives in herds of up to 20 individuals, which apart from during mating season when they come together, are either comprised of males or females. The classification of the Tibetan antelope is simple, something that cannot be said for Gorals, exhibiting the highest difference between the two databases, with the IUCN listing just 3 species, all of which have unique distributions across the Asian continent, and the Mammal Diversity Database listing 6 species. The red Goral has the smallest range. It is present in 3 countries, China, India and Myanmar, with its range sitting on the intersection of the 3 countries. There is some debate as to whether another species exists named Cranbrook's Goral, based on a specimen collected in 1931. The Himalayan Goral is even more debated. This species has a very similar distribution to the Himalayan Tahr, stretching from the range of the red Goral in the east all the way to northern Pakistan to the west. The Chinese Goral is said by some to be a synonym of this species, and there is also the Burmese Goral, which is thought to have split from the Chinese Goral. Finally, the long-tailed Goral is found way over to the east of this taxonomic kerfuffle. Despite having the most fragmented range, found between China, South Korea, Russia, and possibly North Korea, there is currently no taxonomic debate, and so we shall move on to our next group of relatives, which are also subject to a simple taxonomic classification. The 4 species of Serow have highly distinct appearances, making them easy to identify, in addition to possessing mostly distinct ranges found throughout the Asian continent. The Japanese Serow is one of the 2 species that are arguably the most well known, the other being the Taiwan or Formosan Serow, which we'll explore next. Both of these species are classified as least concern. The Japanese Serow is unsurprisingly found only on the Japanese archipelago south of Hokkaido. This species is found most often in forest ecoregions, with temperate deciduous forest being their preferred habitat, and is subject to a rutting season that runs from September to November. Their coat colour can vary from dark to light and anywhere in between. To the southwest, the Formosan or Taiwan Serow is found only on the island of Taiwan, where its population size is unknown. This species exhibits a dark brown coat with lighter hair found under the chin and onto the legs. Fun fact, the word Formosan comes from another word for Taiwan, Formosa, supposedly given to the island by Portuguese sailors according to Wikipedia. It is also used to name other species and subspecies from Taiwan, such as the Formosan black bear and the Formosan sika deer. Moving on, the mainland Serow, also referred to as the main Serow, is found, you guessed it, on mainland Asia, but is also found on the Indonesian island of Sumatra, indicated in its taxonomic name. This species is the darkest of the 4, exhibiting an almost black coat, with lighter areas again on the legs and around the face. It is found in 12 countries, a range that overlaps with that of our final species. The Burmese red Serow was very difficult to find photos for. It is distributed in a horseshoe around northern Myanmar, which stretches into India, China, and possibly Bangladesh. All of the species discussed so far are found on a single continent, with the exception of the northern chamois, which stretches into Asia. To explore our final species, the only animal on this list to be found in 3 continents, we must head north to the Arctic Circle. The muskox is another species with a simple taxonomy, with a single species agreed upon by both databases. It is listed as having a mature population of 127,000, and in their supplementary material, the IUCN gives a detailed breakdown of this population by country. Canada has by far the most mature muskoxen at almost 80,000, and was the only country to show a decrease since the last estimate in the late 1990s. Greenland comes in second with just over 27,000 mature individuals, followed by Russia at 15,500 and Alaska with 4,700. Norway is not mentioned in these figures. Thankfully, these large numbers and a small rate of decline amount to these beautiful creatures being classified as least concern. Not all populations are thriving, however, according to our final study, titled Muskox Status, Recent Variation and Uncertain Future. The authors describe the muskox as a large-bodied herbivore that plays a central role in many Arctic ecosystems, physiologically and behaviourally adapted to living year-round in the Arctic. This paper is a collaborative compilation of the current information on muskoxen by the Muskox Expert Network, or MOXNet. Their best approximation of current global abundance is 170,000, which is an interesting comparison to the IUCN's estimate of 127,000 mature individuals. Endemic populations are limited to Canada and Greenland and number roughly 120,000, or around 70%, with all other populations being classified as translocated and number roughly 50,000, or around 30%. Interestingly, there are two known subspecies: barren ground muskox, which number 36,000 and remain confined primarily to mainland Canada, and the white-faced muskox, which in addition to being located in Greenland makes up all of the translocated populations at an estimated total of around 132,000, or 78%. The global distribution is split into 55 muskox populations or regions, of which 23 appear to be increasing, 9 populations appear stable, and 6 appear to be decreasing, with the remaining populations unknown. One of the most incredible locations where muskox have been introduced is Dovrefjell-Sunndalsfjellet National Park in Norway, a country you can learn about in this video, exploring the ecology and biodiversity of Norway. Thank you so much for watching.